I got all there, yeah.
That's right. Heather? Good evening, and thank you for joining us on July 9th, 2026, at 5 p.m. in the Plaza Soul Basement for the Civilian Police Oversight Advisory Board. This meeting will come to order now at 5 p.m. Ms. Baca? You're taking over, correct? Okay, so Ms. Baca, will you please give me a member roll call?
Chair Calderon,
Present.
Chair Budonato,
Present.
Member Bolianitz,
Present.
Member Duncan,
Present.
Member Richfield. Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. The next order of business will be pledge of allegiance. Due to the lack of having a flag in here, we're just gonna face that.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Next order of business, the approval of the agenda. Do any members have any changes to the agenda as it currently is written? Perfect. Anything from that? Cool, perfect. With that being said, I make a motion to the agenda be approved as written. May I get a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Spofford, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Roll call. Chair Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Budonato,
Approved.
Member Bolianitz,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Richfield.
Approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That motion passed.
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. You're used to it, Thomas. It's okay. With that being said, we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be review and approval of the minutes from June 11th, 2026. Do any board members have any changes to the minutes?
No.
Okay. With that being said, I make a motion that the minutes are approved as written for June 11th, 2026. May I get a second, please?
Seconded.
Thank you, Member Budonato. Oh, so sorry.
All right. We're basically siblings, all right? I understand that. It begins.
Touche. Member Boyans, thank you. May I get a roll call vote, please? Ms. Baca?
Chair Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Budonato,
Approved.
Member Bolianitz,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Richfield.
Approved.
Sir Chairman, Chairman, that motion did pass unanimously.
Perfect, thank you. With that being said, we'll move on to the next order of business to be reports from city departments. Up first will be from APD from Internal Affairs Professional Standards Division, Major Nelson. Possibly.
James Ortiz may be standing in.
Or Daniel, you on it?
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so. Awesome,
Can you
so.
guys hear me okay?
Sorry, Mr. Ortiz, real quick, give us your official title real quick, just for the record.
Yes, it's Lieutenant James Ortiz. Can you guys hear me okay?
So, it's, video quality. You can go ahead and read out your portion, sir.
Okay, perfect. Wasn't sure if you guys could hear me. Yes, I'm Lieutenant James Ortiz. I'll be presenting today for IAPS. My understanding is you have this data, so I'll try to focus generally on the highlights. This week, currently, we have 96 total misconduct investigations open. There's 56 from Internal Affairs, 25 at the area command level, and we have 15 at the Internal Affairs Force Division. We are on track for an overall decrease over the last year to date of misconduct investigations. This time last year, we were at 670. Currently this year, we're at 244. That's about 64% decrease from 2025. For the month of June specifically, we opened 34 new IA investigations and we completed 54 IA investigations with about 36 sustained, with about 67% sustain rate. And our overall investigation completion timeline is 91 days on average. So that's right around our goal of 90 days now. The most frequent categories we see sustained continue to be SOP 101 general conduct and 276. That's generally misport or notifying court that they're going to be missing. And that's pretty much all I have. I don't know if the board has any questions.
Great, thank you, sir. Sir, board members, do you have any questions?
No.
Awesome, sir. No questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. With that being said, we'll move on to the next section, which will be Internal Affairs Force Division, from Acting Commander Nico.
Good evening. I just want to confirm everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Perfect. You guys are coming real low volume for me, so I'm going to try to hear you as best I can. Again, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members, thank you for letting me present to here. Again, I'm the acting commander for Internal Affairs Force Division, and I'd like to discuss a report that was presented to you or provided to you, which is the monthly use of force report for June 2026. I'd like to just kind of highlight a couple of points that I think are really important. For this month, we actually had 25 total uses of force come in. There were 20 uses of force and 5 serious uses of force. This is important because we've actually seen a decrease over the last 3 months. Last month, we had 29, and the month before that, we had 31. So in my opinion, it sounds like our training is working. We train this policy specific to de-escalation and recognizing the use of low-level control and a lot of those types of things. And based upon what I'm seeing, the current trends, I feel very optimistic that this policy is working. Again, kind of like last month, our 2 highest uses of force or types were the 40 millimeter impact munition launcher as well as the ECW. And talking about low-level control, the last thing I want to kind of really point out is, if you recall last month, I mentioned that we had a higher than expected number of low-level control tactics that were being reported by officers. I recognized that it was potentially a training issue, and I submitted an email to the entire department reinforcing the training of what exactly low-level control tactics are and when we want them reported. Based upon that, over the last 2 months, our numbers were, in April, they were 260, then it went to 236. And after this last full month following that email, we went down to 148. This was, again, reflective of officers reporting actual low-level control tactics. And I feel confident that we're heading in the right direction as far as what we're wanting to do and capture that data, which is, I think, really, really important. Other than that, I wanted to just really stand by for any questions the board members might have.
Thank you, Commander. Board members, do you have any questions? No, Michael? Cool. Commander Norris, or Commander Nico, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let's make sure. So any board members on this side, questions? No, 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 cool. Commander Nico, we have no questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. Moving on to the next agenda item will be from APD's Academy from Lieutenant Higdon, I believe it's pronounced.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me all?
Yes, sir, we can.
All right. I don't have the fancy video that those last 2 guys did, so I apologize.
No worries, sir. Thank you.
And because of the volume issues that we're having, what was, I didn't hear what you said.
I believe it's just, this is the initial iteration of you providing a brief.
We have scheduled for a graduation in 2 weeks from tomorrow. There'll be 14 cadets graduating from our recruit officer basic training class number 4. Additionally, we have 10 cadets that are in training right now, and their graduation date is set in, I believe it's October 19th. And we're looking to start it's going to be cadet class number 136. Their pre-academy date is to begin on July the 27th, and the day one of their basic training will be August the 17th. We currently are estimating that 24 should be starting. We still have about 9 that are going through backgrounds and waiting for their final medical tests to come through. Otherwise, at the academy, we are running a phase of MOE training where it is basically going through the yearly requirements from the state for handling persons with mental impairments. And on top of that, they are getting their recertification with tourniquet and trauma kits. Additionally, we are going through our reality-based training that started last month, and that will be going consistently through mid to late November before that's over, and all sworn personnel go through that training. Do you all have any questions for me?
Perfect. Thank you, sir. We do have a couple questions. So go ahead, sir.
So, Lieutenant, a quick question. With the people graduating and people coming in, the cadets coming in to graduation, what is the percentage passing rate? And then how is that keeping up with the churn of officers leaving APD for the Field Service Bureau?
That's a good question. I'd have to actually do some research on that as far as numbers of officers resigning or retiring, and put them into a calculator with what we're graduating. We're pushing to have at least 100 cadets start the academy by the end of 2026, and that's our goals through 2027 as well, as to have at least 100 cadets or lateral officers go through our academy.
Okay, no, if you can get those numbers, because I just want to know the percentage rates, and then also just ensure that we're trying to maintain positive numbers, not declining numbers, with people who are retiring and leaving. So I'm just a nerd that way.
Yeah, I will. I'll get those numbers. I'll have to get with our operations review to find out as far as the attrition rate goes, as far as retirements and resignations.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And with that, you don't have to worry about it till the next board meeting in August. So 30 days from now, basically. So we give you time to work on that if you can. Of course, if there's any issues like that, please let us know, and we'll help and re-understand operation needs as well. And then one more from my vice chair.
Yes, Lieutenant, a quick question. How many of the 24, I believe you said, are out of the PSA program?
For this class, it's going to be starting later this month.
The one that's currently in and the one that's starting later?
The one that's currently in, I don't have that number, but we do have 6 police service aides that are hopefully going to be starting later this month.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Any other questions for Lieutenant? Nope. Awesome, Lieutenant. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to next agenda item will be from ACS from Mr. Jeffrey Bustamante, the Deputy Director.
Hi there, everybody. I'm trying to get my camera going. Mine is, however, spinning. It was a busy day, so this actually works out well on Zoom. With that said, really excited to be here, and thank you again for allowing me to present. We are just going through the divisions quickly. Field continues to see their calls increase with summer, as I usually mention, but to give a little bit of a frame of reference, we had our most calls for service last July, and that was July of 25, and we had about 3,900 911 calls and 1,100 311 calls. And this year we had about 10,030 311 calls and 3,943 911 calls, and that was for June. So we're expecting to see those numbers continue to trend up, and very likely July set a new highest. So I imagine I'll be touching on that when we next see each other in August. Other than that, it is continuing to really just keep at it. Of course, with these hot days, ensure that people are also safe in their space and the rest. Beyond that, in the violence intervention team, we have really been able to, as I mentioned last time, get council approval for additional funding into our school-based violence intervention program. We are doing a pretty large hire up to bring on some more coordinators as well as intervention specialists for into the schools, and then potentially expanding to additional schools as soon as August, and really laying it out as whatever might work best with APS. Beyond that, though, we're really excited about it. I mean, the ability to go from 4 to up to 12 schools is going to be huge. It is nearly fulfills our kind of goal of getting to 16 total. And we have a couple other funding sources that are materializing that should be able to get us to 16. So very, very excited about that. Beyond that, the Seasons of Nonviolence continues, which I'll actually finish on that. But our admin team, of course, switching into the new fiscal year, it is always a big transition to start a new one and make sure that we're going into it as responsibly as possible. So admin has been hard at work with that, along with the big hiring push with school-based, and another will be coming with some of the new positions we got out of budget. So that's it's a fun environment to be in, and thankful for that. That while we did see some line items get cut, and of course we participated in that to try and be good fiduciary stewards as a department, we are thankful for the new positions coming in. Finally, on Seasons of Nonviolence, since we last met, I'm trying to remember the exact day, but we have done more movies. We had a Goofy movie a couple weeks ago, and then just last night we did Pirates of the Caribbean. Had over 2,000 people attend that one. We've also done a volleyball camp, and next week we have a basketball camp. Both of those were at Albuquerque High. We have another movie coming on July 22nd. That will be Clueless. And then again on August 5th, and that'll be Sandlot. And we expect Sandlot will be pretty busy because everybody loves Sandlot. Beyond that, we are looking at some baseball and softball camps to see when we can get that done, as well as a soccer camp, and then some more of those more artistic flavored events. And then upcoming, most of all, which is where I'll finish on, is a pool party at Wilson Pool here on Saturday, 11 to 2 p.m. We will have a dunk tank. I will be in the dunk tank for a little stretch. If you're frustrated by any part of this update, please aim for the target and not me. But otherwise, it should be a whole lot of fun. DJ, food, Wilson Pool time, a few other things. So we're excited about it.
Thank you, sir. What was the date for that again?
For the pool party, it'll be Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Perfect. Thank you. Do any board members have any questions? Agency, anybody? Nope. Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Bustamante. Appreciate your time.
Thank you all.
Perfect. Okay, sorry. Moving on to the next agenda will be from the city attorney's office. So Emma, I don't want to pronounce your last name incorrectly. So would you mind pronouncing it for us?
Yes, it's Emma Monelli.
I would have got that totally wrong. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, I'm assistant city attorney. I work with Lindsay Roseborough, and she had asked me to stand in for her tonight. So I just had a couple of updates. The first one is good news. The city of Albuquerque sued the Federal Board of Education related to public student loan forgiveness. And we just wanted to let you know that the city was granted, well, the plaintiffs were granted the motion for summary judgment. The city of Albuquerque had joined other local and state governments, as well as several other organizations, in contesting the Board of Education's changes to their regulations for qualifying employers for the student loan forgiveness for public service jobs, and that was connected to the sanctuary city status. But so anyway, that has been dismissed, or I'm sorry, the city was granted the motion for summary judgment. So that's great. And then the second update that Lindsay asked me to share was a new program that the city is partnering with the city attorney's office is partnering with the public defender's office with a new program in court called the CABQ Arraignment Program. It's going to be in Metro Court. It starts next Friday. It'll be every Friday. The program is for individuals who are cited with APD issued citations for city ordinance violations. And it's basically to divert those individuals from the regular prosecution process and instead offer services. And the whole point of it is really to try to provide services for those individuals rather than proceeding with a typical prosecutorial process. So that'll be every Friday. And it's going to be like I said, a brand new program. There has been some press on it, but we're hopeful that will be helpful to provide the assistance to the individuals who need it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any board members have any questions? No, there? No, cool. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your time. With that being said, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which will be City Council. Chris Sylvan from Council Services. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Honorable Board, Chris Sylvan, Albuquerque City Council. Just two quick updates. One update. The second half of the agency's semi-annual report for 2025 was done at the Finance and Government Operations Committee meeting in June. And the result was receipt be noted. And that will show up at the first council meeting in August, which is August 3rd. And that's all the report I have for tonight. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Board members, any questions? Agency, any questions? No? Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. With that being said, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which will be the Community Policing Council, presented by Mr. Kelly Mensa, the Community Engagement Manager for the CPOA.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Chair Calderon, Honorable Board, APD employees, city employees, and everyone else, and of course, all the excellent employees of the Civilian Police Oversight Agency here with me tonight. We've had a busy 30 days over the last 30 days, so hopefully we've accomplished a few things. We nailed down September as the next month in which the Chief of Police, Ms. Barker, is going to be doing a round of meetings with the Community Policing Council. And she agreed, as did Harold Bidden the last time, to visit us twice a year. And the last round we did was in March, and it was pretty successful. So we're looking forward to that. And Deputy Chief Langwood said he also wanted to be involved in this, so that was good for him. I also ran into Mr. Raul Buhanda at the Circle K a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him if he'd like to come on and speak to all of the council, and I didn't tell him how many there were. I didn't want to scare him, so hopefully he's going to show up. And I just sent him an email to remind me that he said yes. So hopefully we will get to hear the Chief of Public Safety's opinion on what he feels with the three or is it the four law enforcement agencies, or I should say public safety agencies in Albuquerque nowadays. We received 3 applications for council service. 1 was already added in the Southwest Council. We have officially lost 1 member who's got his thing going on, but best of luck to him. We generally had the monthly crime report as a feature of most meetings in the last month, but we did some other things as well. The Valley had ABQ solid waste and a discussion on homeless establishment cleanup. The Valley has been doing homelessness for the last couple of months. Interesting topic. We had a member of the homeless community who's getting deeply involved in this stuff. Her name is Tiffany Leisure, and she showed up, given her opinion, told the police and the council what she thinks, and done a good job generally of educating people on the issues and trials with homelessness in Albuquerque. At the other councils, all 5 of them, We had a discussion on 4th of July fireworks before the 4th. So that worked out. We talked about regulations. We talked about reporting issues, what illegal fireworks are, and fines and punishment. Does anybody know what constitutes an illegal firework in Albuquerque? All right. If it goes more than 6 feet off the ground, it's illegal. That's your thing. Also, if it can blow your fingers off, it's probably illegal also, but you know. So we went through this whole discussion and it was very interesting. We found out that there really isn't a lot of law enforcement regarding fireworks in Albuquerque. There are civil fines if you are caught with illegal using illegal fireworks, not just having them, you have to use them. And also, there has to be an officer or a fire marshal, a specialized fire department employee to see it personally. Can't be a videotape, can't be word of mouth, can't be anything else. Then it's a civil penalty of a couple $100. Councilor Renee Grout attended the Foothills to give the council an update on crime in the area command up there. Jupa Dave of the Public Defender's Office came by to speak about what to do when you have warrants, how to clear them, because they had a special event where they took the Central Downtown Library for 8 hours, set up some desks for people to come in and to speak about their warrants and what's the best way to get them closed down and taken care of before they actually get more penalties and fines on this. I told her I got some jaywalking tickets in LA and I thought they were nonsense. I threw them away and they actually issued a bench warrant for me. So that's important. I got out of that luckily, but anyway, the YCPC did a field trip to C&M to discuss career options. Kudos to Mr. Angelo Ragland on that one. The biannual supply order is complete. Items have been checking in. I have started replenishing city locations with brochures. A lot of locations out there, lots of people interested. And I presented at one event, the Glenwood Hills Neighborhood Association. We got 6 or 7 people at that one. I tabled at one event, which is the Del Norte Neighborhood Association San Pedro Road mural dedication. There's a huge mural. This is like 3 blocks long over there on San Pedro, heading out toward past Montgomery. If you're over there, drive it. It's very beautiful, and they closed the street off, and they had bands, and they had the counselors, and the mayor was there, and everything. It was a good event. I was off for a week on vacation, so the city somehow continues to function. But other than that, it was nice to have a nice month, and I'm glad to stand for questions if there are any.
Thank you, sir. Board members have any questions? Agency? No? Awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
Good evening.
Next agenda item will be from the CPOA, presented by Executive Director McDermott.
The CPOA received 69 complaint intakes from June 1st to June 30th. 26 of those complaints were assigned for investigation between the CPOA and those appropriately or already with IA. 22 were driving complaints that were resolved with the supervisors. 17 were miscellaneous and where either insufficient information was provided or it was determined APD personnel were not involved in the complaint, or the complainant was resolved to the citizen's satisfaction due to them just seeking information. 4 were submitted for mediation or informal mediation. We also received 5 commendations. The New Mexico Legal Law Group is no longer representing the CPOA and CPOAB due to their desire not to renew the contract. So our city legal presented a new option of Ms. Jessica Dixon from Virtue and Najar. Ms. Dixon will represent the CPOA and the CPOAB, and we welcome her aboard. And we do look forward to the collaborative relationship. The CPOA is now officially fully staffed with 22 positions. I know I said that before, but we actually had everybody start. So, that's a good thing. Last member employee started on the 29th. So we now are in a good shape for that. To assist the public in understanding the changes APD has made to the use of force policy, the CPOA has published a use of force policy report that summarizes the changes. This is found on our website under special reports. So it will highlight for board, public, the various differences between the old policy and the new. So it was a lot of effort by our policy analyst, Gabe Reamer, to put that together, worked with APD to make sure all of the information was accurate and correct. I know Gabe, Mr. Johnson also helped as well. Our complaint forms are undergoing revision to capture data better and to remove the DOJ references and to provide more clarity to the complainants for expectations. We do anticipate rolling out the form on August 1st for the online and APD web-based forms. Our brochures are going to need to be reprinted, so that's going to take a little extra time. So we are looking forward to having a little bit of refinement in our data collection on the new form. FY26 ended June 30th. With the start of the new year here in July 1, we are establishing our new contracts for the fiscal year. A lot of them are already set, a couple of them are still pending, so just a general update there. And the oversight ordinance amendment that was approved by council affirming the CPOA's authority to investigate non-sworn APD employees was published and effective as of June 24th of this year. Briefer report today. Stand for any questions.
Thank you, Executive Director. Board members, questions? No. Cool. Anybody else? No? Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Next order of business will be public comment. We received no written public comments,
No
correct?
public comments.
Perfect. Thank you. With that being said, we'll move on to next order of business, which will be the serious use of force cases. We only have one this month due to 3 appeals being scheduled. So we will review APD case number 25-0067182, presented by myself. Perfect. Date of case was August 14th of 2025. The level of forces that were used was level 3, conducted by Officer 1, empty hand control, choking with injury, which was found out of policy. Level 2, Officer number 1, empty hand control injury, which was found in policy. Summary of events. On August 14th of 2025 at approximately 09:4400 hours, Officer 1 was patrolling an alley west of Cornell Drive Southeast and Central Avenue Southeast, an area known for frequent narcotics activity. Officer number 1 observed CD and JN holding items commonly associated with the use of illegal narcotics, including a tutor, glass bubbler, torches, and burned foil. As Officer number 1 approached, both individuals attempted to conceal the items. Officer number 1 also observed CD attempting to hide a small plastic baggie in his right hand while avoiding eye contact. Officer number 1 reached to secure the hand. CD pulled away and placed the baggie in his mouth. Officer number 1 reported concerns that CD was destroying evidence and that if the substance contained fentanyl, swallowing it could pose an immediate overdose risk. Officer 1 initially gave verbal instructions upon making contact. However, CD placed this suspected narcotics into his mouth. Officer number 1 immediately transitioned to physical intervention, believing further de-escalation was not feasible. Use of force number 1, which was the neck control. In an effort to prevent CD from swallowing the suspected narcotics, Officer number 1 grabbed CD around the neck, applying pressure to the mandible and his hand mandible with his hand, while positioning the other hand on the back of CD's neck. As the encounter continued, Officer number 1 used both hands to control CD's head and neck with hands encirculating the front and back of CD's neck. According to the investigation, this restraint was used while attempting to stop CD from ingesting suspected narcotics. The Internal Affairs Force Division investigation. My apologies. The Internal Affairs Force Division investigation for this use of force was determined to be out of policy. The use of force number 2, which is the ground control and handcuffing. Following the neck restraint, Officer number 1 wrapped his arm around CD's torso and pulled him from the sidewalk onto the asphalt to gain physical control. While on the ground, Officer number 1 maintained control of CD's right arm behind his back and attempted to secure the left arm. During the struggle, CD swung his left arm in an apparent attempt to throw a glass bubbler before tucking his arm underneath his body. Officer number 1 gained control of the left wrist, brought the arm behind CD's back, and successfully applied handcuffs. The Internal Affairs Force Division investigation determined that the second use of force was objectively reasonable within APD policy. The individual's behavior after the suspect was taken into custody was cooperative. Medical attention was provided. Injuries sustained by officers and individuals. CD sustained abrasions on his right elbow, left knee, forehead, and sustained redness. A small abrasion to his neck. CD also sustained a bruise to the inner thigh and advised it was caused by officer. The individual was charged with possession of a controlled substance, tampering with evidence, and resisting and evading obstructing an officer. CD also was confirmed to have 2 felony warrants at the time, and there were no other use of forces identified in our system with CD. Based on totality of circumstances, was force used, was it reasonable, minimal, and necessary? For the use of force number 1, it was not reasonable, minimal, or necessary. For use of force number 2, it was found to be reasonable, and minimal, and necessary. Policy discrepancies that were discovered. It was 2-552-6-C-1-G and 2-52-4-C. The use of force, general prohibited use of force is basically the department shall not use the net codes except where deadly force is authorized as defined by SOP. Also, as based on totality of circumstances, department personnel shall only use force as objectively reasonable, only use force when force is necessary, and only use the minimum amount of force necessary. As well, these use of force policies for the old ones prior to the new ones that have gone live this year as well. So we take that into consideration and use those for the review and determination. With that being said, I have nothing else to add before I move on. Questions, board members? Cool. Awesome. With that being said, I will hand it over to the CPUA's Deputy Director Abbasi to provide his back brief.
Yes, thank you, Chair, members of the board. Just a few additional points that I would like to note for the board today. The primary issue that was identified by IAFT was that the officer applied a neck hold in a situation or circumstance that did not warrant or authorize its use. Neck holds are only authorized in situation where deadly force is justified. The officer, in this case, he stated his intent was to prevent the subject from swallowing narcotics and also to preserve evidence in this case. However, APD's training does not teach the use of neck hold for that specific purpose. Instead, the officers, they're trained to roll the subject, call rescue, and just monitor and observe them, and just have Narcan ready if needed. So IFD review in this case, they also noted that the officer's action did not reflect an intentional application of deadly force. The focus of the finding was therefore on the improper application of the technique under the circumstances presented rather than a determination that the officer intended to use deadly force. Additionally, I would just like to point another thing that during the recent revision to the use of policy suite in April of this year, the department revised the sanction that is associated with the use of neck hold. Previously, it was the unauthorized or prohibited use of neck hold was a class sanction 1, which was a minimum of 200-hour suspension up to termination for presumptive and maximum. In the new policy, the sanction range is now from 1 to 3, which allows the discipline to be determined based on specific facts and circumstances, as we saw in this case. So, but it still maintains the prohibition against the unauthorized neck holds.
Thank you. Thank you. Board members, questions? No. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, sir. With that being, no, calm down. I have a whole spill over here. Okay, Commander Nico, sir, do you have anything to add to this case?
No, sir. Pretty much everything I was going to address has already been addressed as far as the policy changes, the changes in sanctions. So I appreciate that, and I stand for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Board members, any questions? Member Williams, I have one. Oh, okay. No questions, sir. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Perfect. With that, do the board members agree with the findings from IAFT?
Yes.
Are there any other questions before we close out this one? Perfect. Okay, with that being said, I make a motion the Civilian Police Oversight Advisory Board affirms and upholds the findings of APD's Internal Affairs Force Division investigation for APD case number 25-00678182. May I get a second, please?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Baca, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon, Vice Chair Baldonado,
Affirmed.
Member Bolianitz,
Affirmed.
Member Duncan,
Affirm.
Member Redfield. Mr. Chairman, the motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. Give me one quick second. Moving on to the next order of business, which will be the officer involved shooting cases. For this month, we do not have any listed for this agenda, and we will continue those on the next scheduled board meeting in August. So give me one more second. Okay, the next order of business will be appeals. Let me just pull up my documentation, make sure I'm not saying anything. I shouldn't. Okay. We're now going into the appeals portion of the agenda. Our first and second and third appeals are presented by the first person, which is Mr. Patrick Doreta, correct? Perfect. We're gonna do this one a little differently, just due to it all being the same person, sir. So we're gonna hear, you don't lose any time. We're gonna make sure you do all your time. We're gonna save our deliberation to the end, and then we'll go into deliberation, do it for all three, and come back out with the individual responses as we need to, okay? Before we do get started though, our brand spanking new attorney for the board gets to read out a whole gambit of things for us, just to ensure that the public knows what is expected as well as you do as well, sir, okay? So I already forgot your name.
My name is Jessica Nixon.
Jessica Nixon. Nixon, it's something that you should remember that. So Ms. Nixon, would you mind reading that, the spiel, please?
Chair, and it's nice to meet you and the members of the board. We are now at the appeals portion of the agenda, and the following process will be followed for each appeal. During the appeal hearing, each interested party has an opportunity to be heard and to present arguments stating their position. No new evidence will be permitted to be introduced during the appeal hearing. The hearings today are quasi-judicial in nature, and the decisions will be made by members of this board. The scope of this appeal will be limited to the complaint and the findings of the investigation that followed. If the parties during their presentation go outside of this scope, they may be redirected by the chair that only arguments will be considered by the board are those relating to the complaint and the subsequent investigation. I would like to remind the parties to please refrain from using the name or names of any officer involved in the incident that is the subject of the complaint, and to request that the officer or officers only be referred to by this in the same way as they were identified in the correspondence from the CPOA. We are recording this meeting tonight so that a complete, clear record can be created of everything that is being said. However, please remember that we cannot create an accurate record with people talking over one another. If people start to talk over one another, the chair may call for order so that there can be a clear record of the hearing. The time limits for the hearing are as follows. 15 minutes for the complainant who requested the appeal or their representative. They may call witnesses, but this time will count against their total time. 10 minutes will be dedicated for the CPO director or her designee. 5 minutes will be dedicated to the police officer if he or she is present. APD will be allotted 10 minutes, and the complainant will have an additional 5 minutes to provide a short rebuttal to anything that has been presented by the other parties. The burden of proof is on the complainant bringing the appeal to demonstrate that there was a policy violation the policy was misapplied in the evaluation of the complaint. 2, that the findings or recommendations of the director were arbitrary, capricious, or constituted an abuse of discretion. Or 3, that the findings or recommendations of the director were not consistent with the evidence in the record. These are the only basis upon which the board may modify or change the findings of the recommendations of the director. At the end of each party's presentation, the board will be given the opportunity to ask questions. These questions do not count against any party's time. The questions should be focused only on clarifying the record or the argument given, and should not offer or invite new information or evidence from a board member by asking a question. The parties should remain respectful and professional during their presentations. Any disruption of another party's presentation will not be tolerated. At the close of the hearing, in this case, the hearings, the board will deliberate. The board may make a determination in open session or decide to deliberate in closed session as allowed under the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. All final decisions by the board will be made in public. Once a decision is made, a final written notice of decision will be provided to all interested parties as provided by the applicable CPOA ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. With that being said, Mr. Tureta, would you like to come up to that podium right there? Awesome, sir. Before you start, let me also make sure how you want to go about this in your aspect. Did you want to go between each appeal individually for your comments? Okay, perfect. So with that being said, we will start with CPC 137-24. With that, sir, you will get 15 minutes on this one. We do have a timer on all the screens, basically. And so with that being said, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and, board to be able to come before you. A very pleasant, I should say, a very unpleasant situation when you have to deal with situations that I have. I can remember as a child when you ever had an issue and you were told that if there's a policeman nearby and you need their help, you asked for that. You asked that help. And they were there to support you in community and understand what the problem was and possibly work to be able to resolve it long term. That's not happening anymore. It's very unfortunate, you know. I very seldom ever run into really good, dedicated police officers anymore. It's really sad. And you know this to be true. You know this to be true. All you have to do is look at the media. You see exactly what's been happening with this police department. It's shocking, you know. So everything to do with the DWI issues, some of the more recent issues that keep coming back. It's very disgraceful to me as a lifelong tenant of the city of Albuquerque. I've lived here 76 years, and I'm shocked pretty much every day to see what is happening. All the things that we've seen with the last police chief and issues that I have run into. I'm community based. I've lived lifelong in Morelos, and you can check the police records. I've never even had as much as a parking ticket, you know, or any citation of anything of the sort. I've served in the United States Navy military, and I've always kept true to those responsibilities. And it's really discouraging to me when I hear police officers in some of these things that say, yeah, well, you know, that's the military. This is different, you know. And it's unfortunate when I've seen people, and have those of you that are on the board, have you really seen the videos that are involved in this case? Have you gone through them?
Yes, sir, we have.
Okay. If you have, then you will know that the decisions that was made by the internal investigators are not acceptable, you know. There was continuous opportunity for officers to conduct themselves as they should. In fact, what is the general conduct of responsibility state in print? It says department personnel shall treat the public with respect, courtesy, and professionalism at all times. I did not run into that. On several occasions, you would see officers, and it's in those videos. It's not because what I'm saying here. It is in those videos. If you look, you will see, and I could point those out. But no, you don't show the videos up here. I can't relate to, okay, item number so and so and so, so, you know, there at all. So people can't even get to see that, you know. So it's basically my word against the authority that is clothed and supported by the taxes we, the residents, pay. That's not correct. That's not the way to run an organization. That's abuse of authority, and I do not stand for that. I respect authority. But if you realize from duty and everything that you may have had, those that have served in the military, those of you that have worked either as a police officer or with police departments or different legal organizations, the respect is earned. It's never demanded. And that's where you build a great community support, not through force, intimidation, coercion, all those sort of things. I'm going to go into present now under this 137. I see my time's running out. In this case, on case 137-24, there were two officers involved, and based I can tell from the report, they both have the initial C. One's female, one's male. In the case of this issue that happened on April 13th, both the officers responded to the call that I gave, which was a 911 call, and immediately started challenging my right to be on my property. You know, I've lived there on that property for 35 years. I've lived here in Albuquerque, right in that same neighborhood for 75 years. You know, I know my responsibilities. I know my property and things of that sort. You know, so when you start hearing these sort of things, oh well, you know, hear this guy, he doesn't pay attention, doesn't want to comply and everything of the sort. You've got a lot of misinformation that has happened in your department. And once it builds, then they go, oh, well, they're going to put a name on you. They're going to put this guy as the troublemaker. That's exactly what happens, which is irresponsible. My background in the community for over 14 years, I have volunteered at the Morella Senior Center. When I was president of the Neighborhood Association, we worked to build that center because seniors deserve a good place to be able to congregate and deal with, the different situations in their life and enjoy their retirement. I've set up over 14 years ago, the only garden that exists at any of the senior centers, received Lifetime Achievement Awards. I'm not old enough even to a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm still alive, There's so many different things, The mayor's been there several times to cut the ribbon. Our Veterans Memorial has been on TV, on front of the newspaper and everything. And all that is done from the basis of seniors. We don't take tax money like a lot of the people who are in this room receive tax money. We do it all from a volunteer basis. We understand what community is, and that's what we support. That's what the police department should be doing in that case. In this case, where I was put off my property, and why? Why was I put off that property? Because of the, outstanding problems with homelessness. I, at that period of time, had hip replacement. I'd had heart attack. I still have a leg brace and massive tears on rotator cuff. That does not stop me. I still dedicate and do, what's right for community. And if you listen to those videos, you always saw my response to those officers. Never argumentative, but I did not stand when they were putting out false information. One of the big things was they do not know exactly what the rules are from code enforcement. They come out and they tell me, you can't be on your property, sir. Do you see that sign over there? That sign says, this is the city of Albuquerque's property. Look into that right in there. That's not the city of Albuquerque property. That's my property. I paid taxes on it and everything of the sort. I said, what does the sign say? It says the only ones authorized on this property are the city, the owner, and anybody who's authorized by the owner. No, this property is condemned. You can't even read. It says substandard, and you have the right to be on that property. How do you have to be the right? How many of you know what the right is? The one other thing, officer, yeah, I know, and you can't. See, this is city property. It's not city property. You can see that in those videos where they're harassing me with that position and everything of the sort. That was not the case. And then you see that the internal decisions that were made by the internal investigation, oh yeah, everything's fine. Oh no, this stuff never even happened, anything of the sort. It's documented in those police records, and it's documented not because I say, in writing on those records, and also in those videos. So that is not being paid to. It's a nice opportunity to say, oh yeah, we're all one big happy group of the good old boys, the good old girls, and this is the way things. But when you get down to the real situation, this is affecting many, many different seniors. I had to spend over $24,000 out of my money to be able to have to demolish my house because it was destroyed so much when I was in for various surgeries and things of that sort. And the police department didn't care. I tried to bring them videos. Oh no, they think I'm, playing the secret cop on the side or something of sort. Then the next thing you see in the video, oh sir, you got to have cameras, sir. We got to have information. We got to see who's doing this. If you look at one of the reports, you'll see nobody was ever arrested during these over 30 burglaries on my house. How would you like to have your house burglarized 30 times? And when you call, you get harassed by the policeman? Where is that right? Not acceptable. Okay, there is also in the code that a police officer, when they know one of the other ones is violating, supposed to report that, not one time. And it's well documented in there. Sure, I need an attorney to take this on. That's what's gonna end up being probably in the situation. But that's what happens. It's continuous, and you can see it in every one of those cases that happen. There were burglaries, convictions. I caught one of the guys one time when I had my arm in a brace, and I'd had the heart attack and everything of the sort. What happens? He was burglarizing one of my vehicles and everything out there. Two police officers show up. You can see the report, and they talk to him and everything of the sort. Oh, it's good old boy week. I thought they were going to take him to lunch. One of the officers comes to me and says, is this your property? I said, yes. You got the call. Yes, here's my driver's license. I've lived here 35 years, And I said, what's going on? What's the situation here? Well, he said, we're going to charge him with off-property trespassing. The guy is on the property, breaking the windows, stealing the battery out of the vehicle and everything of the sort. I said, excuse me? Oh, let me go check with my partner. You can look at those videos and see that. And what does the guy say? Oh, well, he comes back and he says, oh, no, we're gonna arrest him for auto burglary. Wow, I thought they were gonna take him to Disneyland first and buy him, candy bars. I didn't say that because I don't address personnel like that, That's exactly what happened. Next day, the guy was out again, I showed him, I tried to show him videos on where that was a stolen vehicle. License plate was changed on it 3 times. We're not interested. What's going on with that? See what I'm talking about? All those sort of things. Those are all in the record. I submitted all that documentation, things of that sort. It's just not acceptable. So if you look, specifically on that case, continuously that things were not addressed. And one of the things that really irritates me from the COP office, at the very last minute, here they give you a week before you get the documents. They're not even printable. Initially, they're not. You have to call and say, could you put them in a format so I could print them down so I could read them? Oh yeah, maybe we can take some 3 or 4 days to do that. On one of the other issues, when I asked, where is this report? Because they called out a mental health officer. I had vertigo, and you know what the officer said? Look at the report. They thought that I was putting crystal meth into my ears. Hello? Wow, where's that come from? Unbelievable. When this other officer came out, who was a mental health officer, and I talked to him and I said, sir, can I ask you, what is the difference between you and these other 2 officers? He said, oh, they call me out when there's a problem because I can have people committed. Wow, look at that. So many times I've run into officers say, oh, you're a veteran, PTSD, huh? How do they treat you at the VA? That's the kind of treatment you get. And you can see that in the videos. Because I said, well, I'm not asking for anything special, but why are veterans being treated like this? There was a massive disrespect for not only seniors, but for veterans that I've seen in that case. That specifically in that case. In this burglary, the 2 officers say that, oh yeah, the person couldn't have gotten in because you can't even open the door, all these other sort of things. About 2 days later, there was another burglary. There were sometimes 3 in a row, and they continuously accused me of living on the property. Never could they ever prove that I wasn't. I was not living on the property. Why would I want? And if I was, you know what? Those guys wouldn't have come in because I would have been there. I would have called initially. The officers, you can hear them in the video. They got tired of me calling. They said, sir, you are not to call anymore. You're telling me my rights? I'm not to call anymore? A senior police officer, Where is that right to tell me you cannot call anymore? We don't want you to call. We're not going to take these calls anymore. And then you can hear them get on radio and they say, oh yeah, we need, what is it, CIT? They call it sometimes, CMT. And that's where, these guys, that officer was so embarrassed when he found out it was just vertigo. He wasn't even aware what vertigo was. There happened to be an ACS woman that was there and she spoke up. No, he's telling you the truth. I said, even you could have it. That's what you need to see, and that's not acceptable. That one needs to be revised. Those officers need training or they need to be dismissed. Do you have any questions of me?
Thank you, sir. Board members, any questions? At the moment. Awesome, sir. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow the agency to give their portion real quick, and then as well APD, and then we'll continue the process with the next case, okay? So if you just want to have a seat, sir. Thank you. And CPOA, who wants to go? Is it you? Executive Director? Cool. Executive Director McDermott. Just 1 second to swap. I guess the camera still works there. In the corner.
Yeah.
That's fine. You leave it. Yeah.
All righty, thank you, Chair. So in regards to 13724, and I'm mostly going to focus on the written appeal request that was received because the presentation drifted between the other incidents plus incidents that were not covered in the complaint. So just that point. So Mr. T had put that the 3 different conditions that are required in the ordinance were met. To respond to that, though, as the first point being misapplied, the SOP that was selected, as he had read, was on the record that was addressed. The officers did respond to the information, act with what they had to work with. The findings were reviewed and done by the investigator, by the agency, by myself in terms of the OBRD, the CAD, the report, the interviews. All of the evidence was reviewed to come up and support with conclusions. Regarding the second point, the findings were based on the objective evidence gathered during the investigation. Again, the role of the investigator is to impartially evaluate the available evidence and determine whether the allegations are supported by a preponderance of evidence. That was met. The third being is that the record evidence was not consistent. We argue that it is. There was no direct evidence provided that is beyond a perception or opinion for the claim. The facts and the evidence support the conclusion. So going into some of the specifics that were in this particular case, there were 3 officers that were in this incident. The on-body recording device footage from that date, along with the CADs and the incident documentation, were reviewed. The objective evidence did not substantiate that any of the officers were violating policy or being disrespectful or belittling. Officers responded to a reportable residential burglary, walked the entire property with him, remained on the scene while he repeatedly attempted to open a block door and discuss their observations about the condition of the residence. The officers made comments among themselves. The investigation did not identify any statements or conduct directed towards Mr. T that rose to any level of misconduct or demonstrated disrespect. During this particular call, he didn't mention this during his presentation, but this is the one where he did follow someone, make a call to 911. And in the recording of that call, he had said that he had observed a man breaking into his house. Then he had said that they were climbing over the fence to come out of the house. He reported that the person had cut the lock with bolt cutters, must have had bolt cutters, didn't see bolt cutters in his hand though. However, when the officers came to the residence, he had to unlock the lock. There is a gap, but he had to unlock that lock, so they didn't cut the lock. He did not identify any property that this individual was supposedly carrying of his. He had mentioned that there was a bag or a sling back of a chair, something of that nature, to the operator. The CAD reflects the information that the officers then had to work with, and the insufficient evidence was given to the officers to either find an individual or have any evidence that an actual break-in where property was removed. From that, in fact, in that particular instance, he had said that the person put property in the house as opposed to remove property from the house. Another point that he had raised in his written was that the door couldn't be opened. Again, the investigation found no objective evidence available to the responding officers at the scene or later in the investigation that there was this burglary. Throughout the encounter, he repeatedly attempted to open the door, but it remained obstructed by items still in the structure. The officers did photograph the interior through the partially open doorway and observed numerous items positioned against the door. Mr. T had believed that the obstruction was caused by the intruder, but the investigation did not support that conclusion. The officer's assessment of the circumstances was based on the information and physical evidence available to them at the time. He had said that morning that he could easily walk into the location, but again, based on the officers, most of which had been there before, had previous experience, they had previous reports, and what they observed at the scene right then, it was unlikely that there was this free access that was described. More than once, Mr. T was insistent that someone was still in the property because he was feeling resistance while pushing on the door. And rather than acknowledge it was item shifting, again, officer peered in, officer took photos. There's no evidence that there is any individual that was currently in the structure. He was talking about in this appeal about the vertigo. That actually did not happen in this specific case, so I won't go into that too much. But for the point of the board, the appeal request did talk about that. There was no mention of that vertigo issue in this particular case from officers. So again, based on this case alone, this incident alone, officers responded to what they had to work with based on all of the factors that they know. Mr. Turrieta talked about being challenged on being on his property. That actually didn't occur as much in this one. It did occur more in the other one. However, the code enforcement put a substandard notice on this building, means no one should be in this building. I know Mr. T had talked about the meaning of the sign. There appears to probably be a disagreement of interpretation between officers, between him, what code enforcement's intention is. But again, the main point being is when officers see a substandard notice on a building, it generally indicates to them that no one should be present. So they're asking and clarifying and getting some sort of proof would be expected and, within policy to do that. I don't think there's anything for this particular. So.
Thank you. Board members, do you have any questions? Perfect. Thank you. With that being said, we'll move on to APD's portion to Commander Sean Waite. Good evening, sir. Can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you. Sean Waite, Professional Integrity Commander for APD. As I've presented to you all before, I'm the current discipline authority who reviews all misconduct allegations arising in the department, to include the allegations, findings, discipline proposals that come from the CPOA. I think Ms. McDermott did a good job of laying out the case. I'm sympathetic to the complainant. It sounds like that's a problem in his neighborhood where he had to deal with people around his house or whatever. But as Ms. McDermott says, the residence was marked by code enforcement. Officers can only work with the information that they have on scene. I too reviewed the videos. I don't see any bad feelings from the officer toward the complainant. They did what they were asked to do. They responded to the call. They couldn't determine at that time that there was a crime occurring, and so that really limits their opportunity to charge anyone, even if there had been anyone on scene. So again, the department reviewed this one allegation from 13724, and we concurred with the findings of the CPOA.
Thank you, Commander. Board members, do you have any questions for Commander Waite? No questions, sir. Thank you. Perfect. Mr. Turrieta, with that, would you mind coming back up to the podium? So at this point, we'll give, there's an additional 5 minutes allotted for this specific case, as a rebuttal or as a final comments for it. Give us one quick second to get the timer ready. And 5 minutes is yours, sir.
As you heard Ms. Vermont mention, false information. And what did I say when I opened up? Good old boy, good old girl, hey, we're all going to take the pat each other's backs. Why? Because you can't change the report. Oh no, how would it look? Oh, I'm embarrassed. That happened. Can't happen. That's exactly what's happening. And where right here on the report, she said that it was not identified on the report. Why? When I made the 911 call, which is a long call, and I pursued the individual in my vehicle at a safe distance so I could see where he was going, continuously reporting to the operator where he was and everything of the sort. They get back and they said, we don't even believe you. Nobody could have gotten in there. I showed them where if you looked at the videos, you would see that where that section of the gate that is in front is pried open that big. In fact, that one of the officers, Officer C there, says, oh, you can't get in there. You look at this. As chubby as I am, I went through. I said, look at this. And the reason you could not open that door is because in the exit, and I had heard there just before I got, onto the property, I heard this big bang, and that was shovels, and there was some iron bars that I had right behind the door and everything of the sort. Those that all had been mixed. When he finally put the camera in to take the picture, I heard the report when she said a moment ago, oh yeah, he peered in. You couldn't, it was like 6 inches. You can't peer in, use the camera. Take a look at those pictures, on the camera. You're gonna see originally that one officer, the female officer, she says on the video, she says, oh, we can't get in there. That place is full of shit. That were her exact words, No, Nothing that was in there was any garbage or anything. Those were things that I had rescued from the other destruction that had happened from the main house that I eventually, they could never keep the story straight on what was which and which was where. And as I said, they said, that house is condemned. Why are you in there? No, one, I wasn't. They continued to accuse me of living. Well, you know, you've got the utilities on everything. Never, they weren't. The only utility that I kept on was the electrical, because when myself or other people needed to go in and do work to be able to secure the area, you know, last time I remember, we all used a lot of, you know, electric tools. We don't, you know, have an extension cord that runs forever. That's what was there. So the information she said, it was the same thing that was in there. Here in that final portion of the report where I've highlighted, the officer says, P, my name, Patrick, has been making several calls. See, so it showed you they don't like to have to respond to that. It says at this time, there was no criminal charges. Well, of course, if you don't catch the guy, I had the 911 operator online probably 35, 40 minutes. That's their response time, you know, they never even got there. You know. No evidence of a burglary, no identification of the subject. 911 showed the exact identification of the subject and everything, what he looked like, all the way down to the orange drink that he was carrying, you know. And there was nothing to show that there was an attempted burglary. I showed her where they had been cut through the chicken wire fence to get to the chain link fence to get to the main part of the door. Once you have that, it's easy to get in through that. And that's all, you know, completely clear. You got to be blind not to see that in the video. It's exactly, you know, the way that situation happened. But like I said, I knew exactly. Friends told me, you don't want to go there. Oh man, they ain't gonna listen to you. I said, I know. I know how the system is, but I'm still gonna go anyway because I stand for what is right. And I don't care. When I see abuse, I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna mention it. And that's exactly what the situation is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ureta. So with that being said, we're going to hold off deliberation until the last of the cases. So we will be moving on to CPC 138-24. Yeah, Mr. Ureta, sorry about that. So with that 138-24, again, sir, you will have 15 minutes for this initial, and then we'll go through that same process again, okay? Let me just get us all set up real quick. Right? Are you ready, sir?
This one gets even better because this is a supervisor, is a sergeant, an individual that had continuously, when this female would come out, she'd say, "Oh, it's you again, huh?" That's exactly, and you can see that in the video. So if you haven't seen the video, you're not paying attention to that at all. So you're not seeing anything of that. Right away when that officer came out, as I said, as a sergeant, she even continued to say, "You're still living on the property." No. It's right there in the record where she says it. You can hear it and everything of the sort. Well, and I'm going to say this because it had been said throughout several of the other ones, but specifically it was in this case. You still have the utilities on at that house. I do not. I told her the only thing that was on, just as I mentioned to you a while ago, was the electrical, because you need that in doing that, you know, to be able to do repairs and everything. I had people that went through the roof, tore off wrought iron doors, everything of the sort. She continued to say that I didn't have a right, and there's a supervisor who doesn't even know what code enforcement rules and regulations are. I never got them violated because they could have taken me out, they could have arrested me, they could have handcuffed me and everything. So never was I. There were never any charges because none of that ever came. So you can see on there, you know, in the report, you know, here she says that yeah, you've got you failed to accept any help. ACS, we brought ACS out. In fact, you know what happened to me one day? ACS wanted to escort me. I know how to drive. I know how to get there. I'm capable. Over to the VA. I said, fine, I'll meet you there. Why are you gonna waste tax money to put 3 ACS people in a government vehicle to drive me over there? I can drive over there. I'll meet you there at the front door. They did not believe that I had gone to try to find other sources of housing. You know, in fact, the same Sergeant M, she continues to say, you can see on that video, you don't want help. You're not. We've been told. I said, you point out those people. Let's go see those people. No. In other words, put up or shut up. No, it was continuously harassment. You can't tell me it's not harassment. You go back and see that video in that case, you know, of this 138-24. You will see that continuously. You know? But you can't see it before you make your decision because the decision's going to be made here in the room pretty soon. So you don't have time to do the research. that I know not only what happened. Here's one of the biggest things. This happened over 2.5 years ago. Now, the hearing's coming up. Oh, great. Wow, what a timely fashion. Yeah. What do I hear? Oh, we don't have enough people to do the work. Crimes being committed out there. What's the police department's responsibility if it's not to answer, to when a person calls? But she said continuously, she says, yeah, you don't want to accept any help. That was a bunch of garbage. And then another case, oh, the city's done this, and anything that I ever arranged, which was helping to cut the vegetation so people couldn't hide and everything of the sort, I arranged that through a military group that was there. When it came to clearing some other debris, as I told you, I had all these medical conditions. I was still dealing with all that. I called because I'm very familiar with the Department of Senior Affairs. Like I said, I volunteered there for 14 years. I called Home Services because they have a program where they can help you and everything. Oh yeah, we called the city. That's a bunch of crap. They didn't call the city. Look at the records. Nobody looks at the records. That's what I say. And nothing's going to change because it gets into that good old boy, good old girl system. And that's what it's going to be. Like I mentioned a while ago, you don't have time to look at the videos. Between now and you're going to do your deliberation here in the room a little bit, you're going to coat it over with gravy, just like they did a little bit ago in that last case. So it's been continuous like that. When people in authority abuse their authority, that is a major violation. And they're doing it with our tax money, that sort of thing. That's not acceptable. So after a while, this one supervisor, this sergeant, you can see it through some of the other cases. I'm only saying that because it relates to this and it happened here. Where, oh yeah, Turrieta, yeah, we've had that problem. Yeah. Okay, call the ACS and send over again another time, send over a person who talk about mental health. So now they're playing doctors. That's great, yeah. This is how individuals are disrespected. What other senior would probably be willing to come up here and discuss this? I've been in the trenches all the way back, and I'm not talking about military. I'm talking about back in the community when you have to work together. In fact, our garden is not supplied by the city of Albuquerque. Go over and check our garden. We supply that. We raise the funds, and people are continuously shocked on what we are able to do. I even got a grant last year, and we don't get any money for labor, to put in a handicap garden. I'm giving this, I know it's not part of the report, but if you don't understand the character, the people who are behind this, then you cannot understand the sentiment that we have. You can tell that, this is 2.5 years worth of waiting to come before somebody and explain the situation in hopes that somebody would say, you know what, maybe we better look into this. No, we don't, No, it's, yeah, we all agree, and everything of the sort, That's exactly what happens. And I had all my friends tell me this is going to happen. I said, I know that. But you know what? Maybe at some point there'll be a little piece of light. Somebody will say, you know what? Yeah, my dad, my mom, my great uncle, my aunt, somebody's getting older. And maybe we need to take a look at these sort of things. But I just continuously and once this supervisor got on board with that, what would happen was continuously, you can see. And so when the COP lady here says, oh yeah, well, you're taken out from another case. You ever heard of when such things are coercion? Do you know what that word means? That's exactly what happens in those, because when you look at these different cases, you'll see those same sort of things. And for the officers to come out and say, you can't be on this property. And they said, finally, they said, oh, you have to have a letter. I have a letter. And it's in date and everything. So every time they asked, I had the letter, How does that happen? Do you know, even today, it's been over almost 4 years. I cannot go on the property to take care of it, maintain it before 8 o'clock in the morning, after 8 o'clock at night. However, if I'm a burglar, I can be on there anytime. I don't need any letter, anything of the sort, And I'm charged with, okay, you have to maintain this and everything else. The city put a lien against my property. What if you read the technicalities on that? It says that lien is for the day that I don't cut weeds or I don't secure the house. That's where they spend that money to send somebody. Never have they set foot one on it. Check the records. You'll see that. So it's a lot bigger conspiracy and picture than what any of you thinking. Oh yeah, some little video, some Hispanic guy over there, in Morelos is being given a hard time. Oh, well, all those Chicanos, they're all the same. Anyway, why do you live down there? Why do you live down there? Because we believe in our community. That's where the history. Where's the Hispanic Cultural Center? Half a block away from me. Where's the zoo? you know, 3 blocks away from, where's the rail yard to built New Mexico? 2 blocks that way, you know, that's where the history is. That's where, you know, reality strikes. Not up in the Northeast side. Oh, look how pretty. It all looks like New York up here. It looks like, yeah, great. But where's the culture? Where's the fact, you know, that happens from there? Let's see, 114. Oh, so anyway, that case turned into, like I say, where they ended up calling out the mental health officer again too. There was a real nice officer came out one time with this other lady from ACS during this situation too, and right, specifically in this case. And they said, sir, yeah, well, you don't seem to be having a problem. You seem to be easy to get along with. And they were apologizing for the police officers. Go look at that video. You'll see that. Oh, I'm sorry that happened. No, that shouldn't happen. Nothing of the sort. And yet you can sit here and tell me, oh, no, that never happened. You know, and they would tell me, no, you know, that's why this guy needs somebody mental, because he keeps calling. You know, yeah, you keep calling and asking for help. And this is what you get when you do that. I'm shocked. It was never like that before. I don't know where that attitude's coming, but somebody's got to get a backbone and start standing up and checking the rules and regulations. That's why we have attorneys to represent when situations like that happen. And hopefully it's a good attorney, you know, in that case, not somebody that's just out there to see how they can make money or change ambulances. They use that term, right? So that's exactly what I see in that case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dureta. And just for reference, we review all footage, all materials prior to the board meeting extensively. So I probably spent a good 4 or 5 hours on this case, all these 3 cases myself. So just for awareness, you know, we do review these cases. We review all the materials, all the videos, everything, because to your point, everybody deserves a fair hearing, right, on it. And so you understand exactly what we're looking at, and you have exact materials as well. So with that, sir, we're going to go up to CPOA, and then we'll come back and give you that 5 minutes at the end, okay, for this case. So moving on, next we'll be on to the CPOA from Executive Director McDermott, and you have 10 minutes and time starts now.
Thank you. So one thing I did want to address that was raised here is the length of time. I do want to acknowledge that the CPOA acknowledges that the delay in this case is significant. It is not the normal practice for us. But as he pointed out, we did advise him that there were staffing shortages. We had investigator leave. We've had a broader change in how we've handled different cases. We did have an FMLA situation on one of these cases. It was decided that it made sense to have the cases together since they were similar issues, similar concerns. So we did need to make sure that all 3 were completed similarly at the same time. Cases that get reviewed, if they don't have sustained findings, do, when our resources are low, have to get triaged and how we resort to them. So again, we acknowledge the responsibility for the length of time that this case took. And we do apologize for that. We have made changes to, you know, hopefully prevent those kinds of things from happening again. Back to the specific case here. Again, in his written appeal, he had mentioned the 3 conditions of the ordinance. What I said in the previous case stands basically for the same response to those. In this incident specifically, he had talked about the letter not having a date on it. There's not a requirement to have the date in when we summarize the complaint for the letter. So in this case, because different investigators wound up having to finish things up, they didn't particularly put a date. But again, it's not an issue of a requirement on that. The letter summarizes the findings. The date itself is not an issue of concern. When the sergeant talked about that he refused services and ACS didn't help, so the OBRD was reviewed. The sergeant was not rude, condescending, or unprofessional during the interaction. They did discuss previous encounters that obviously Mr. T and the sergeant had. The ACS assistance, we could not independently verify what resources, because it was outside of the scope of this particular incident or complaint. We do know, based on the review of this, that there is an extensive history between APD, Mr. T, and ACS, and various resources offered. So what the veracity of what help he accepted and what help he may have refused, But based on her information and her research, at least that she had available to her at the time, there was some indication that perhaps the resources weren't accepted or wanted to work through. Again, outside of the scope of this particular complaint in actuality. The things that he made specific quotes on for the sergeant, they were not quoted in that way. The video supports that they were not said in those specific manners or that specific way. He had said that the sergeant belittled and humiliated him. We did not see evidence to support that finding. One of the things that he had pointed out with that particular call was there were footprints outside of the location. However, he had also said that he and other workmen had been working in that location, so there were going to be various footprints there. Basically, the sergeant, when she said that, and she never said he would never be able to call ever again, but she did say about that day that he should not call again, obviously unless an emergency happened. He had been calling multiple times for multiple incidents. The sergeant does have to balance the resources between what can the officers actually do and accomplish at the call versus what other resources and calls that they have to deal with. So she did advise him that his ability to report all of these incidents, both any theft, burglary, damage, can all be done online. That is the modern age, unfortunately. I understand that can be difficult for certain individuals. However, there are resources to help with that process if necessary. But the online system or the phone call, they can make a telephone call to the telephone reporting unit to report these things where an officer is not dispatched. So those were resources that she mentioned to him. There was a statement again in the written appeal about that the sergeant was required to submit a police report. In this instance, she was not required to submit a police report. There's no policy that required it in this particular instance. She did provide a card of her information to him when requested. So that was whether or not the CAD was documented on it. Again, not a policy violation either way, but if it wasn't there, again, not a policy violation. So the evidence basically reviewed, reflected the incident occurred in the context of numerous calls about the same property. Again, as we already said earlier, code enforcement had designated this property as unsafe to occupy. There is authorization only during this certain period of time. That is why he's required to have that letter to show I have it. It's something that you have to renew. It's something that you have to have it, certain date ranges and all of that. Again, we don't investigate code enforcement. We don't talk about the legitimacy of the decisions that the city as a whole has made over this property. All we're concerned with is the allegations that are being made against the officers in, again, this specific incident. We can't increase the scope over all these other contexts and these other issues. We can only go by what is available to review us at the time.
Thank you, Executive Director. Any questions? Cool. Well, perfect, thank you. With that being said, we'll go on to APD to Commander Wade.
Again, as Ms. McDermott said, we concurred that there was not a policy violation, that Sergeant Martinez's interaction was professional and courteous. She was stern, but that was in the context of the multiple calls for service and what officers believed was a code violation or a code enforcement violation. So again, we concurred with the findings of the CPOA.
Thank you, Commander. Board members, questions? No. Thank you, Commander. With that being said, Mr. Tureta.
There's another big lie right from that officer, I confirmed, with them, and you can look in the video where, in fact, one of the internal investigators from COP even asked in the internal investigation, asked that officer, did you mean you were never going to come back, or did you mean just that one day? Redacted is all that sort of thing. It's redacted. You can't even see it, so you can't even see them. But even that her internal investigator asked that question, So it was not, oh, well, yeah, just one happy day and everything and sort of, no, she has a vendetta built in there. You can see it when you watch those videos. Why else do you think on those occasions she called the mental health officer, you know? And, you know, today they were telling me in regards to that that information, and I can show you, it's right on the phone from this lady's office, you know. Oh, that didn't happen. That was just, you're just kind of assuming that from a different report. No, because it is written in the report that they called the CRT, that the person that deals with mental health and everything. So I'm not telling you anything that isn't true. So if you're listening to that, because they're going on secondhand, well, yeah, we got to cover up again. Here we go, because we've already said this, so we can't back off now. How would we look? Wow, gee, we wouldn't be doing our job. That's exactly what's happening, you know. And if you guys don't look and go back and see that, because you evidently missed it, I said in any of those cases, I'd be willing to sit down with any one of you and let's go right to that frame by frame, and you can see that. And I only got that information, some of it a week ago. I was even up till this morning asking for some of the last info that they never supplied. They told me, oh, it didn't exist. There it is right in the police record that it did exist and everything. So they still don't have that video ever. The one about when that mental health officer came out and the lady from ACS. If she would not have been there, I would have been committed, because she was the one that stood up and said, no, he's telling you the truth. Even you could have, you know, vertigo, you know, but see how that is? The truth doesn't matter, you know, because you've got a badge and you've got the authority and you want to abuse the authority, you doggone well think you can, you do, because who's going to know? The dead person isn't going to be able to speak, you know, we all know that sort of thing. So when you get in, and don't tell me it doesn't happen, as I mentioned, you know, when I first opened on those sort of things, it continuously happens. They continuously find bad apples, and it ruins the rest of the department of people who are trying to do a good job. I know several officers who, a lot of them are retired now, but they served well and everything of the sort. And that's, you know, just that credit to that. So this to say that, no, that didn't happen. Oh, she treated everybody. And oh, did you see that officer that was on the screen? Oh my goodness, he used her last name. We're not supposed to do that, correct? See what I mean? Those sort of things itself. I mean, sure, it's nothing big, but see how that's how they play the rule. Oh, no, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. Do it anything of the sort. So I hope you all have good conscience and say that, yes, I've reviewed those specifically, because if any of you had a backbone, you'd say, you know what, sir, I think you're full of it. Let's sit down, show me that. And I would, but no, that won't happen, because the way it works is, well, we got to support these other people because, you know, it's the way it is. You know, it's exactly how it is, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So with that being said, sir, we can move, you don't want to go sit down because we're going to start the next one right away. So we will, Mr. Tureta, we will start the next one, the 158-24. We'll start that one right away for you as well. So once you have you ready, sir, for the next one? Okay, so we'll move on to the appeal 158-24. We're starting off with 15 minutes for Mr. Tureta, and you can start now, sir, if you would like.
Okay. Right in this police report, and it's 244-003-8884. You know, you can see what the officers submitted, you know, in there. They're saying, as they do all the time, you know, this guy keeps calling, he's such a problem and everything. And so, well, if you do your doggone job well, you know, we wouldn't have so many different problems. And if the mayor would, you know, I voted for that guy twice. I told him last year at Valentine's Day when he came in, I said, you know, I voted for you twice before. I wouldn't vote for you for dog catcher anymore. That situation with the homeless people, you know, out there, I used to volunteer and help always with Good Shepherd and things of that sort. That homeless situation is one factor. Homeless is one thing. When, you know, you're dealing with drugs, and you saw what happened, you know, with the federal government with this fentanyl and everything of sort, you know, that completely destroys a society. Even police officers can't keep up with that sort of thing, because that's not right. Somebody needs to quench that and resolve it. That's what the biggest factor. I'm not saying just a bunch of hoodlums are running around. People don't have a place to stay. No, I help people like that all the time, you know. So for them to say that, oh, this didn't happen, all this other kind of flowery stuff, you know, it's not. But here, in the report, it says, due to the amount of calls for service that Patrick creates, he's trying to report the same damages at the same residence. And that's the other thing they tell me. Every time, oh, no, that was already happened. That's already been. And this one you heard Ms. McDermott say, the thing about, oh, the footprints. Oh, there were a bunch of other people. Go in and look at that video specifically, because I analyze them completely. I was paralegal in the Navy, and so you have to look at that. People's lives depend on that when you're making those kinds of decisions. And she's, oh yeah, well, a bunch of people were out here, so they walked out. No, that never happened. This was in an area that day, it was fresh, and other times they came out and they took pictures of tennis. I realize it's on, but if you happen to catch the guy down the street that just left the place and you come back and, oh, that's the connection, common police work, from there. But you can see on that where that sergeant says, oh, no, well, a bunch of other people have been working. I said, no, the only people that came on here to work, they were on that other side. These are all fresh. And I say right now, the only ones that are different are mine, and you see them here because I'm staying away from the rest. Because a lot of times when you call in, they say, don't touch any. We're going to check for footprints, handprints, all that sort of thing. And in a couple of cases, they did. And the thing, and then you'll see predominantly, we never caught anybody. That's not true. I specifically, as I mentioned to you that time, I caught that guy, on there, and here I am in a condition, that I couldn't even, defend myself. Him and I were standing closer than this podium is, and I had my arm, like I said, in the brace, couldn't even wear regular shoes. And he's telling me, why are you stealing this to C-SPAN's mail? Why are you driving this to C-SPAN's truck? Then he tells me, you don't even know Patrick Turriette. He's telling me, do you think I said, no, you don't know. I know my military training. I was not in a condition to be able to defend myself. So I played the part that I was on the phone. He says, who are you talking to? I said, I'm talking to the police department. He said, I'll wait with you right here. The guy had enough gumption to say that. I eventually got back over to my safe zone, went away, called 911. Took them 4 hours on a 911 call during the day to get there. That's what you get. So when you can't find anybody, maybe because you ain't showing up in any kind of reasonable time. And so you're not listening to the residents. Why would I have occasion to lie to them? They make it sound like I'm some kook that, oh, I know, let's call the police today and let's play games. No, there's no time to play games. There's real things that are happening out there. And that's why there were many more cases than this. But I said, let me give them a sampling. Maybe somebody on that board will say, you know what, maybe we better take another look at this. Hopefully that'll happen. But I'm not really sure, that it ever would. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. With that, now we'll go on to CPOA Executive Director McDermott. And your time starts now.
Again, the third written appeal addressed the same conditions of the ordinance. Again, my answer will stand that we reviewed the evidence and made the appropriate decisions. For this specific case, again, some of what you heard was not for this case. It was complaints that did not actually get filed with CPOA. So we have no, knowledge about some of those issues that is raised. In this particular case, one of the things that he had raised was the response of the female officer. And he had said multiple times, both in his original complaint as well as the written here, that she had said a statement of, we are sick of coming out here. That did not get stated. That is not a quote that the particular officer made. The officer did make a statement, something to the effect of she wasn't sure if they'd be able to clear the property because the last time she happened to have been out there, which was the time of, I believe it was on 137, the door couldn't be opened and they couldn't clear the residence. So she did make a comment based on her knowledge of what she had experienced from before. Again, both officers were familiar with the property. It was deemed uninhabitable by the city. Both officers were familiar that he had to have permission from the city to be working on the property and it was required to be renewed. So again, asking for the confirmation to see the document, make sure the dates were in time is within policy, is within a normal course of action for these officers in this type of a situation. In his written amount, he had talked again about the interpretation of code enforcement, the sign, etc. Again, we are not making any statements specifically about code enforcement or how those things are being interpreted. During the written thing, he had stated something about that an officer said he was taken in if he didn't have his report paperwork regarding the code enforcement issue. No one said they were going to take him in or take him anywhere. Again, the interpretation may be different, but it is a substandard structure. As I said, they needed to check and see if everything was in the appropriate method there. again, bringing up other calls with the officers then. When he was discussing things with the officers, he's bringing up multiple incidents, multiple things that gives them context, but it's nothing they can actually act upon. They can only deal with what they are presented with for that specific call, that specific day. During the course of the discussion, there was about some concern of mental health, possibly, or at least what resources could be provided to him to assist. So they did call ACS. The officers that were on scene were not familiar with his medical condition. As he pointed out, when ACS came, the clinician was familiar with the condition. The way in his written appeal, he said something about crystal meth in the ears that was not heard in the video. Specifically that there was a talk about crystal in the ears and things like that. The medical ACS clinician again explained, yes, this is a condition and all that. And officers were like, great, okay, you know, we know that. I want to make it very clear on the record for anyone listening. He was talking about a missing video. There is no missing video. All videos were provided to both him as well as the board. The evidence is all clear in the file. The reason why I suspect the reason why he thinks there's a missing video is because the quotes that he had claimed were stated were not in the video because they did not occur in that way. His interpretation may be that this is how it came across or what was said, but the actual quote was not listed in that way. So again, they did not say they were going to take him in. They did explain how they do things. The way he phrased it in his written appeal was not exactly how it was stated in the video. So again, that may be his interpretation, but that is not the quotes. So they were there, they tried to see what they could do for him, didn't believe that he needed the resources, or at least the resources they could offer at the time, and departed. So basically on this one, many is quote, this was the one that had most of the quotes that he had, and the quotes were not stated. Officers summoned ACS out of concern. They didn't know the details. They wanted an evaluation. Calling a unit to do an evaluation is their job. It's the normal course of what ACS is there for. It's not a waste of taxpayers' money. It's not harassment. This is what they do, just to confirm that if there's anything that they can do for a person. There's no policy violations in this case. At the scene, he referenced, again, as I already said, multiple calls of service, and his dissatisfaction were those with those calls. We did not look into those calls because that was not part of this specific complaint. So again, we are, now that this is including, I mean, we are very sympathetic for his situation. He's dealing with a very difficult task of trying to get this property up to par, and, you know, probably facing a lot of limitations. But in terms of what we have to look at with these complaints, the policy was followed from these officers.
Thank you, Executive Director McDermott. Moving on to APD from Commander Waite.
Board members, again, explained by Ms. McDermott, we didn't find any policy violation. We concurred with her investigation. These officers that were on scene had been at the residence before, both of them, to my recollection, and they attempted to gather services that could be presented to the complainant. They determined that that was the most that they could do at that time based on the evidence available to them. They consulted with a supervisor, and I don't recall if it was, my notes say MCT, which was the mobile crisis team, but whether it was MCT or ACS, they attempted to provide options for the complainant in this case. So that's actually what we want officers to do, is provide those additional services when they're available and eligible, and they fulfilled that role in this point, and we concurred that there wasn't any policy violation.
Thank you, Commander. Any questions, board members? Perfect. Thank you, Commander. Mr. Tureta, if you, we'll get 5 minutes on the clock for you real quick for a rebuttal, and the time is yours, sir.
Once again, false. that officer that was up there, he's saying, oh yeah, we were trying to help provide ACS. If there was any other help that I ever needed, I sought it out. When I didn't have housing and I went up to those of you that may be veterans or have friends that know what HUD-VASH is. Some of you know what HUD-VASH is probably, you know, where they work to help veterans who are homeless. Never have I ever been homeless. Never have I ever been homeless. I was, because of the lack of backbone for some of these police officers to be able to stand up. Oh, we didn't know. We didn't have any information you heard. We didn't have any pictures. Continuously, I can show you the documents too that I submitted. In fact, to code enforcement and on through them too. Should have been coordinated. A vehicle that I mentioned earlier, that the license plate was changed 3 times. Sometimes it didn't even have a license plate on it when it would come to burglarize. I sat out there, recorded video. Did they want to see that? Nah, they thought I was Miss Kravitz, you know, from Bewitched or something of the sort, trying to help them, trying to work. You know, that's what community policing is. But now we got our good old boys. We know exactly what to do now. We don't need your help. That's exactly what I was getting. Anytime I ever needed any medical services or anything of the sort, and I do not have medical problems, because the people, if you look at those videos, which I'm beginning to think you really haven't, because I keep hearing them saying, oh yeah, same old thing. Good old girls, good old boys, same sort of thing. In there, you can continuously see that if you put together the whole picture, and that's what police is supposed to do. You ever seen Columbo? He does a good job, maybe from Hollywood, but he does a damn good job. You see the plot and it comes up. That's exactly what you would see, you know, in this sort of thing. So this thing about, oh no, we provided the services and everything of the sort, never happened. If there was any services, because I know how to pull myself up in my bootstraps. Maybe my boots are torn. Maybe I can't walk very well. Maybe I had a heart attack, you know. Maybe I had hip replacement and one leg's longer than the other. That doesn't stop me. I was never taught to be able to say, no, you know what, that's not me. I can't do it. Let somebody else do it. No, when somebody needs help, I'm there to help them, whatever, you know, requires. I don't care who they are, what age they are, what the situation is, because that's one of the biggest things we have. And people who are sworn to uphold the law, they wear a badge, hold the uniform and everything. It's disrespectful to that uniform. And it's disrespectful to the taxpayers that pay them to be able to do that. You hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, well, I work for this and that. When you're a public employee, because I've been a public employee, your salaries are regurgitated. In other words, you're not doing the work that pays your salary. It's the people who are really working out there every day. They're the ones that give the money, the government the money, and then you get paid from that. So we have a double responsibility, because the people who have to work to pay our salary. And so that's exactly where, you know, that sort of thing comes from. So when you have a situation of where people are, you know, playing these kind of games and things of that sort, that's never going to change unless somebody grows a backbone and starts saying, you know what, I found out this to be true and everything of the sort. And I would hope that, you know, we glimmed a little bit of light up to you as a committee, but no, because all the paperwork's been written and everything of the sort, it's already been determined, everything of the sort. It's unfortunate.
Thank you, sir. With that being said, I make a motion that the board come. Oh, so sorry. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Sudeppa?
Mr. Trust, yeah. So, Mr. Trust, I do have a question. I wanted to wait till the end to ask this question directly to you. Is what are you hoping to get out of this board's decision? What would be a good or a preferred outcome from this board's decision?
You can ask this woman here. What did I put down on my original calls when I was first called? And I was asked that question by COP, whatever it's called, COPA. What's in the record?
Sir, I'm curious of what I want to know from you.
No,
right
I'm
now.
asking because it's in the record. In the record, it said, if you go back and look at their reports, this is almost 3 years ago, and it hasn't changed. It says, I want to sit down with the police chief, and he's gone now. You know, he T-boned somebody and everything of the sort. He's sitting home with his feet up, collecting a great pension and everything of the sort. You know, I met him, he's a nice guy, but when something like that happens, I said, I wanted to sit down with the chief of police. I wanted him to look at those videos with me and tell me, is that the type of police force we need in the city of Albuquerque? No, what did I get originally? Oh, you're going to sue the pants off. No, because who pays those suits? We do. We pay that. It's not big money that comes from someplace else. It comes out of your and my pocket. So Do you think that's wrong what I asked? You don't, I hope, you know, and you can go, you think I'm saying, go back and have them look in the record. You'll see exactly that's what in there. When they call me, well, sir, what is it you hope to get out of this? That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted the right thing done and people to grow, you know, backbone and stand up for what is right. I was not asking for any money. I never have asked for any money. I've never done that. So does that answer your question, sir?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. With that being said, I make a motion that the board convenes in closed session, sir. Y'all, yeah. I heard y'all. Oh, you're gonna second my thing? Okay, sorry. I make a motion that the board convenes in a closed session as authorized by the Administrative Adjudicatory Proceedings exception in the Open Meeting Act for the limited purpose of discussing the matters presented in CPC 137-24, 138-24, 158-24. May I get a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Bucko, may I get a roll call vote?
Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Bernardo,
Approved.
Member Bolianovich,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Redfield.
Approved.
Mr. Chairman, that motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Bucko. With that, we'll go and close deliberation.
There's a weapon.
Yeah, I think we're 20 seconds, I think. I was waiting for the YouTube one to go. and I know what it needs to do.
Yeah.
Motion that we come out of deliberation. May I get a second?
Seconded.
Member Bolianis, thank you. Ms. Baca? May I get a
Sure.
roll call vote, please? Thank you.
Chair Calderon,
Approve.
Vice Chair Budinato,
Approve.
Member Bolianis,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Rachel.
Approve.
Mr. Chairman, that a motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. With that being said, Mr. Toretta, if you want to come up to the podium right there real quick. And Member Duncan is going to read our findings. So Member Duncan, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The board appreciates your time and effort you took to present your appeal and thanks you for bringing your concerns for CPC 137-24, 138-24, and 158-24 to both the Civilian Police Oversight Agency and the Civilian Police Oversight Advisory Board. We recognize the importance of providing community members with the opportunity to be heard and to participate in the civilian oversight process. Prior to today's meeting, the board conducted extensive review of your appeal, the investigative file, the evidence and case materials applicable, Albuquerque Police Department policies, and the findings of the CPOA Executive Director. During its deliberation, the board carefully considered the information presented and evaluated the appeal in accordance with the authority and standards established by the CPOB ordinance. The board is committed to conducting an independent and thorough review of every appeal. It must also remain within the scope of its authority as prescribed by the ordinance. After careful deliberation, the board concluded that the appeal did not meet the standards required to overturn the executive director's decision. Specifically, the board did not find the evidence that the policy was misapplied in the evaluation of the complaint, that in the findings, the recommendations were arbitrary, capricious, or constituted an abuse of discretion, or that the recommendations were or that the findings and recommendations were inconsistent with the evidence contained in the record. According to the board concurs with and upholds the findings of the CPOA Executive Director for CPC 137-24, 138-24, and 158-24. Please know that the appeal reviewed by the board is thoroughly examined regardless of the outcome. Through the review process, the board identifies observations and opportunities for improvement that may be formally communicated to APD. These observations may result in recommendations that promote continued dialogue between CPOA, CPOAB, and APD regarding the potential policy, procedures, training, and operational improvements when appropriate. Although the board's authority is limited by the ordinance, every appeal contributes to its broader oversight responsibilities and its ongoing efforts to strengthen police accountability and public trust. You will receive a written notice of the board's determination, which will summarize the board's findings and the basis for its decision regarding your appeal. On behalf of the board, thank you again for your participation in the civilian oversight process.
Your words, good old boys, good old girls. Thank you.
With that being said, I make a motion that we uphold the findings of the CPOA director. Sorry, am I passing my laptop? I make a motion that we uphold the findings of the executive director for CPC 137-24, 138-24, and 158-24. May I get a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Baca, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Affirm.
Vice Chair Budinato,
Affirmed.
Member Bolianis,
Affirm.
Member Duncan,
Affirm.
Member Richfield.
Affirmed.
Mr. Chair, that motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. With that being said, that concludes the hearing for appeals CPC 137-24, 138-24, and 158-24. Give us 1 second as we transition. So what happens when you have 1,000 devices? Gotta imagine. Okay, with that being said, we'll move to next order of business, which will be reports from CPOB subcommittees. First up will be Policy and Procedures Review Subcommittee presented by Vice Chair Bludonato.
Thank you, Chair. Policy and Procedure Review Subcommittee, we met on July 2nd at 3:00. The reports from the subcommittee. Our next meeting will be coming up August 6th of this year at 3 p.m. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Board members, any questions? Perfect, thank you. No questions out there, perfect. Moving on to next agenda item will be the Ad Hoc Audit Committee presented by myself. The meeting was held on June 25th of 2026 at 4 p.m. via Zoom to determine the case that we were going to audit. Another meeting was held on July 7th of 2026 at 3:30 p.m. at the CPOA offices to discuss the case and answer any questions that we had prior to publishing or making our audit report. With that being said, so we chose to audit CPC 2025-000239. With that being said, the report has been provided to the board for prior review and any changes to requesting changes or opinions. Do any board members have anything to add, change to that report that was sent over prior?
No, sir.
Agency, no questions, comments, concerns? Cool, perfect.
Just a comment, you did good work on the report.
Thank you. I tried my best. I took some time on that, sir. Worked really hard on it, okay? Trying to set standards here. So thank you, Deputy Director, I appreciate that. Perfect, so with that being said, I'm gonna approve the report so we can go into, I don't, it goes into your guys' at this point, it just goes to you guys and we post it online, right? That's what we do? I don't remember what we do with that report.
Yes, Chair, this is the first time that the board created this process, so we can definitely find a place on the website.
Okay. I think we can, I think we should, so the public knows that they can go back, look at it if they want to, and it's somewhere on the website, right? So it's not going to council, so I mean, you can submit it with your packet if you want for next one, I don't care. So with that being said, I make a motion that we approve the written report as written for CPC 2025-00239. May I get a second, please?
Second.
Awesome. With that being said, Ms. Baca, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approve.
Vice Chair Bludonato,
Approved.
Member Bolianic,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Rifle.
Approved.
Mr. Chairman, that motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca, appreciate that. With that, second part to this portion is we discussed initially the cadence for the next audit subcommittee, right? So the next meeting dates that we have tentatively planned right now are the 21st of December of 2026 to select the next case that week. And so once we get closer, we'll determine the exact date and time. Discussion and case briefing and back and forth with the agency would be on the week of January 18th. Of course, again, we'll determine exact date and time. And then the report will be presented at February 2027 board meeting is the intention as of right now, right? We want to talk about the cadence of it just so we can have this going forward. So it's not just a last minute panic moment and we keep stuff ahead of ourselves. I know, right? Because we do that last time. No. No. So we can ensure that we just have continuity, right? That's the biggest thing too. So with that being said, I need to make a motion to disband the audits ad hoc committee, correct?
I thought we just,
Because
we didn't do that last time.
I thought we did.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Typically that would go on like the next agenda.
Okay.
To put it, as an agenda item for a possible action. It's not listed, so it may not be
That's fine.
during this meeting, but you're absolutely right. It is an ad hoc.
Okay. Cool. You good, the council?
I do agree with that recommendation. Since there's no action item on tonight's agenda, I would say for the next meeting.
Fabulous. Can you mark that down for the next agenda item, Ms. Baca?
For the next meeting?
Yeah, action item would be to disband the ad hoc audit committee. And you can put me under that one. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So I have you guys, keep me in line. Perfect. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be discussion and possible action. In parentheses, we have pending information. That was a typo on our behalf. The pending information is what's below. Yeah, with that, we'll move on to APD policy presented by Deputy Director Ali Abbasi. And we have two policies that we're going to talk about for recommendations, SOP 1-3, grooming standards, and SOP 3-46 for discipline systems. Floor is yours, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. These are the two policies along with the other recommendations that are on the 35-day review period for the board. The policy 1-3, Mr. Reamer provided you with in your packet all the information that we had discussion on during the policy and procedure review subcommittee on July 2nd. So the recommendation that we had and the discussion that we had at that subcommittee meeting was that this policy currently contains a specific provision that prohibits, that creates prohibition on dreadlocks. While another provision within the same SOP 1-3 already prohibits hairstyles that interfere with the proper fit or use of required headgear. Our policy analyst, Mr. Reamer, he raised this question during the Policy and Procedure Review Board Subcommittee, APD committee meeting, and asked the policy owner to remove or revise that specific provision, citing the Crown Act and the CABQ Human Rights Ordinance, which makes it unlawful for an employer to discriminate based on race, specifically protective hairstyles and race-related hairstyles. APD declined to remove the prohibition, citing that dreadlocks are not protected or race-related hairstyle, and the prohibition is necessary to ensure proper wear of headgear by sworn personnel. Within the policy 1-3, the last section does talk about exceptions by chief of police, in which basically which allows the chief to consider reasonable accommodations. Request to the department grooming standard policy. This means that the department can assess concerns on case-by-case basis. The policy analyst also reached out to City Legal for more guidance. However, we have not yet heard back on what their evaluation or assessment is on this particular issue. However, we believe that the department should consider removing this specific reference to dreadlocks and rely on the other existing provision that prohibits any hairstyle that interferes with the proper use of required headgear. You just don't particularly specifically call out just one particular hairstyle. We recommend removing that specific calling out. So, I mean, in the CPOA, we also understand that law enforcement does operate under a unique framework where civil rights protection must balance with legitimate non-discriminatory safety measures. So that is pretty much what APD's case is, but we had a discussion with the board and the board recommended to take it to the full board for discussion and action. Our point is that you just leave the other provision that already exists because that is the explanation that you're specifically calling out dreadlocks in this case. So.
And Chair, I did want to also call out another thing that Deputy Director Bossy, that's in the report that Mr. Reamer put together was there is a possible lawsuit over the New Mexico Livestock Board over specifically dreadlocks as well. So it was more of a CYA of, hey, let's just remove any of this, make it any hairstyles at all that could interfere with safety gear, right? And then that way it doesn't matter.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Director. Board members, have any questions or committee members? No? So with that being said, you haven't submitted the recommendation yet, correct?
No, we have not.
Okay. So, perfect. Can I make a motion? So make a motion that we, well, yeah. So I make a motion that we direct the CPOA to submit this recommendation on our behalf. Yeah, maybe a second.
Seconded.
Thank you, Member Williams. Ms. Baca, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approve.
Vice Chair Bulunato,
Approved.
Member Bolianis,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Rightfield.
Approved.
Mr. Chairman, that motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. Appreciate that. Moving on to SOP 3-46, discipline system.
Yes, thank you, Chair, members of the board. You know, there was no specific recommendation for this policy, but the reason it is in front of the board tonight is that during the discussion at the Policy and Procedure Review Board, when this policy was presented, there was this matrix at the end of the policy. It's called Chart of Sanctions. And APD, when we reviewed that chart of sanction, APD said they could not come up with a better one. So our policy analyst worked on 3 different versions, and we said that we will give our recommendation to APD to incorporate in the policy. You have in your packet all 3 of the recommendation that Mr. Raymer came up with, and it is just for the sake of selecting or thinking what do you guys think is the best appropriate one to recommend to APD.
Thank you, sir. Board members, do you have opinions?
The opinion of policy analyst gave, and I believe also with the sub policy committee was number 3, because I think it made a little bit, because there was a little bit of a breakout too from what I think it was like ITC was. Let me pull it up here. Or it was what ESI was, and then going from the different classes for the first offense, second offense, and third, and then down further, because you know ESI and trying to add a little bit more clarity versus
What's applicable, what ESI
Right.
is applicable to and what it's not.
Yeah.
Compared to alternative number 2, it has ESI up there, but it's separate from the ones below. Remember, I said, you have an opinion on which one? Yeah.
No.
And the
After
document?
reviewing it, I believe that the one that Gabe, first of all, he did an incredible job
Mhm.
on that, but the third one I thought as well was the best.
I would say the motion that we should make is we submit all 3, but we say, hey, I think
We have a preference.
huh?
We have a preference.
We have a preference of alternate of chart 3, because I believe the one in this packet was the one that Mr. Reamer was talking about. Was the 3rd one down on this, that was the one that he also really liked too. So I would say submit that one that he likes as our preferred, but here's 3 options to choose from. And I would say that would be the recommendation. So then that way it's like, hey, this is preferred, but you have 3 options.
That works. I think it's reasonable.
Do you agree with that? Do you agree?
Yes.
Do you agree? Okay. With that being said, I make a motion that we direct the CPOA to forward this recommendation of sanction charts in its totality with a note stating that alternative number 3 is the voted preferred one. May I get a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ms. Baca, make a roll call vote, please.
Chair Calderon,
Approve.
Vice Chair Budonato,
Approve.
Member Bolianis,
Approve.
Member Duncan,
Approve.
Member Reichfeld.
Approve.
Mr. Chairman, that motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. Appreciate that. Perfect. And is that all you had for 3-46, sir?
Nothing
I
for
think-
346. no.
Perfect. And then, I'm just read this one off for you right away. I show there's no recommendations for SOP 1-54 honor guard team, SOP 2-4 use of respirators, SOP 2-110 facial recognition management system, SOP 3-8 data governance program, SOP 3-14 supervision, SOP 3-15 sworn personnel position and seniority. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time on this one. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for guys for being on the subcommittee. And then we have AP responses to policy recommendations. Is there any to report?
Chair, we did not receive any.
Good, good, but not good. But I think granted, you've gone through the policies 1.5 times at this point. So with that being said, there's no APD responses to policy recommendations. So that's just a standing item in the event that we do get some. The next order of business will be other business. Does any board members have any other business to bring upon agency? No, no, that's good. Fabulous. With that being said, we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be the adjournment of the meeting. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 13th of 2026 at 5 p.m. Currently scheduled at the City Council chambers. Notice we posted as according to Open Meeting Act. So be on the lookout for that one. With that being said, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting. May I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Member Bolianis. Ms. Baca, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Budinato,
Approve.
Member Bolianis,
Approve.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Rexville. Mr. Chairman, that motion has passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. With that being said, the meeting has been adjourned at 7:38 PM. Thank you and have a great evening.